No, just lost power, I imagine, due to extreme heat.
Gotcha. Well, we in Arizona, as Bane would say, we were born in the heat, molded by it. So, hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Dodgeball podcast. In this episode, we'll be recapping the events of the Elite West Region Round 3 tournament that took place this past weekend of July 7th. And here to help me do so once again is Allyn Thomas. Allyn, thanks, man, for hopping on. And sorry about the changes again. Definitely my bad, but I appreciate you being flexible, man. Thank you.
Yeah, always happy to join you. And, no technical issues this time, so I think I can forgive you.
Right. Just going to knock on wood and hope everything goes well. I will say, quick disclaimer, though, we did try to have Serge Ferrari on here, but unfortunately, Dr. Ferrari had a project get thrust upon him last minute. And because of, without getting too involved into my military life, which I've been griping about a lot of Phil in the most recent episodes, there's a lot of transitioning going on. So unfortunately, I didn't have the chance to put together the panel that I wanted to, but I don't want like 4 weeks to pass by before we can do this. So it's just you and me, man. Let's just go ahead and let's get right into it. Starting with what was the major difference that you noticed between round 2 and 3, other than the location? Let's start there.
Sure. Definitely some teams came out to play. There was some more shakeups in the top 4, but really Anarchy. Just having a team that none of us had ever seen play in the way that they're currently built. We've probably all played against Billy and Mikey if you've been to nationals in the last 2 years. Then you for sure know those guys. But it was interesting seeing a team come from another division where they weren't necessarily they didn't even win their division actually, but come out here and really do well in the West was an interesting impact on the West.
Yeah, did you have any idea of like how they're going to impact round 3, or were you expecting them, first of all?
Well, I knew they were coming. Yeah, Billy had announced it actually months ago. Like I think somewhere before round 2 even, he announced that they were going to come to round 3. So the East round 3 was so early. It was like beginning of June. It was almost a month ago. So like they were going to have to potentially go 3 months without an elite tournament between their last one and national. So really it made perfect sense for them to come. And it's currently still within the rules. There's just some stipulations as far as elite, but yeah, I mean, I think they really showed up. Good for them.
I'll say it was almost paralleled to when I went to the East Coast with Titan in Boston back in 2016. Same thing. We're just trying to get another round of practice in as a team, and we thought we were just going to steamroll everybody, and for the most part we did. But I guess Shootaz, which is the team that preceded Anarchy, just said no, and we're like, who the hell are these guys? Like they're like this Mikey guy's like, don't underestimate him. That guy throws hard as crap, and there's this one guy who can catch just about everything. And so watching Anarchy kind of build from that, add Billy to the mix. I had a feeling they're going to be a pretty solid team, and I was very curious how they would do against the West. And so when I found out they're going to show up, I was like, wow, they're going to be like top 5 easily. And I wonder how some of the other teams are going to react to that. And it was it's kind of like a mixed feeling for me. It was cool watching a new team from a new region come in and dominate the West and give everybody a run for their money, especially people or teams like Rise and Doom. But at the same time, it's like, come on, guys, like we can't let these guys come in and knock us around. So I don't know if you felt that way at all, or how did you react to that? Was it just like another challenge for you guys, or?
I've had some criticism for some of the travel that's happened this year, but I'd rather have a whole team come to the West Division than a top player from the West Division just go join a top team from another division, which we've seen happen this year. So I didn't really have a problem with them coming. And you said it right. I've watched that 2016 was Shootaz's first year in Elite, and I watched that tournament in the finals where you guys went to play against them, and they look good. You're not wrong about Mikey. Billy gets a lot of attention, but I would put all my money on Mikey being the best player on that team. And one of probably the top 3 players in Elite. He just has every skill. He's so quick. His throw is so effective. His pump fake, his catch game. So, yeah, I mean, when you have a dominant player like that, and then the experience of a player like Billy, who draws so much attention, and then a good, solid supporting cast. I think the guy you were talking about that catches everything is probably Brandon Kelly. That guy's a monster. So,
yep.
Yeah, I mean, great team, and it's good to see they're built like a balanced team. On paper, it's half a Davis and half a Shooters, but the guys on the team definitely play their roles well. With Zaps on the right side, facing off against him. So, good. It's a good team, and then I didn't really have a problem with them bringing their whole team. That's something that I think that's definitely better than just trying to shake up and make one team really good and try to win one team.
Yeah, or like you said, just bring the top tier players from one team and just having them play for, because there's really there's no benefit to that, right? I mean, you kind of, the individual gets some practice time in, maybe elevates that team, but isn't there like a ruling where like you can't do that more than twice, or can you kind of break down that rule from your?
So you can't have more than one Class A travel player if you're a non-Class A team. So say you're the 5th ranked team going into that round, you can bring one Class A player, a top 4 player from another region. I actually think you can bring as many non-top 4 players as you want. So like all of Reignbros could go play on a team in another division. As long as it's not more than half of us, then it's not considered a hybrid team. The rules around that are really sketchy. They're not really clear. But the benefit to this is, the problem is if you say Pine goes and plays for, or what happened early in the year, Anarchy, Ketchum goes and plays for Anarchy, is that team can get all the points they would get for winning or getting second or whatever. Well, this team coming to the West doesn't actually, while they may knock some teams down and some teams might have, their bracket ended up different, they don't count for points. So essentially where they finish is just thrown out. So what we saw is in this tournament for points-wise, it looks like you got Heat in 2nd and Rise in 3rd, and then you have teams tied for 4th instead of tied for 5th. So it doesn't it impacts everything a little differently, but the teams that finished in the top were still their regular teams and still got the points they would have gotten really for had that team not been there.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was just like reading this little note here with Titan. They got 3rd, and then it just says tied for 6th due to Anarchy's points and place not counting. So I guess that's kind of what you're talking about, where even though they finished 2nd, it doesn't really impact how the rest of the teams finished. But I agree. Right. And not to pick on them, and I really don't want to open this up again, but when Andrew Ketchum flew out to the East and played on Anarchy, you're like, oh, it's going to be like this again. Like that, I definitely would like to see less of, versus an entire team, as you said, just to echo that, coming into new regions and getting their practice in, and also just that exposure. Because now it's like, oh crap, we got to look out for more than just Doom, especially when there's Doom and Anarchy. Like I was kind of expecting, Rise, Doom, Titan to be fighting each other for first place, like last for round 2. So it's just good to add that variable, I guess, and it just makes it interesting. But speaking of unforeseen teams, Heat, man, the Arizona team, I was shocked. No offense to them, that they took 3rd. From what I understood, they looked really, really good, and they're just making their plays. Were you able to watch any of them by chance?
Well, we got a chance to play them in co-ed. Heat's a really unique team. I would say that probably Heat and Reignbros are the 2 kind of least orthodox teams when it comes to just what everyone kind of thinks people in Elite should play. There's a lot of ideas about the ideal way to play Elite and the kind of back and forth, the right time to counter, how to protect. And Heat kind of throws a lot of those out the window. They're such a fast team, and they're such good catchers that they really try to avoid being like in a middle, like control the court throw, like what, kind of how Rice uses the tall guy, Chris Bell, and how Doom uses Pine and Vince. They try to really stay out of that situation where they're up at the front line throwing at you. They really almost want to be on the back line and taking advantage of you running you down and things like that. So, I mean, they catch a lot of teams off guard with that. And Fortune, I really thought Fortune could do it, but they also failed in co-ed too. We played Heat, and if Fortune had beaten them in co-ed, we would have played Fortune. So the bracket was pretty similar on that even on the co-ed side as it was in the open side there. So the same Fortune had two tries at the same team in similar situations, and they couldn't take it home either time. So just you can't get caught off guard by how fast they are.
Yeah, I wonder what they did differently. I mean, I can only really speak to the fact that, like Randy and some of the players play no sting for the Phoenix Dodgeball Social League on Thursdays. But they also, since round one, have opened up several open gym or elite practices. Don't know if you know the guy, but Joe DeFuria has gotten together with some of the other Phoenix Dodgeball people to make these practices happen. And it was awesome. I was talking to Eric Nolan about it because during round one, we're like gassed and just getting knocked around and like kind of trying to remember how to play dodgeball again. He's like, dude, we got to figure out practicing. Like Arizona's just looking bad. And to see that kind of come into fruition and see that these practices were helping was awesome, especially since a lot of the Heat guys were showing up to the practices. So I wonder if that's kind of what helped, but also if it took them a couple of rounds to get into their rhythm. But actually, they didn't go to round two, I don't think.
He did. Yeah, he was at all the rounds this year.
Oh, okay, I take that back.
They didn't do. Let's look here. West round 3 recap. Open. Where are you? There we are. They just did really bad at one of the rounds. I can't remember which one it was.
Could have been the first round because I remember beating them in both open and co-ed.
There you go. You got it there. We want the full recap.
Let's see.
The West Division full recap. Here we are. Heat got 13th at round 1, 9th at round 2, and 2nd, well, 3rd sort of at round 3. So they were at all 3, but they really only performed in one of them.
Well, I guess this was a good one to do so. It's unfortunate though because they're apparently not going to nationals, which is a bummer because after a showing like that, we want a solid Arizona showing. I guess we'll have to wait until next year and see what their plans are.
Yeah, there's another team I just found out I'm pretty bummed isn't going to nationals, which is Tuda, who they've had kind of an up and down season. They started off their best in 5th, and then round 2 they got 7th, and round 3 they got 8th. That's Havoc. It's 7th, 5th, 8th for Tuda, but also another team that's not going to nationals. A young team that you'd like to see those guys get the experience on that big stage. And I have to imagine that Love Tap, which is their ladies, is going. So I'm interested to know why their guys aren't going.
Yeah, I wonder what happened. Well, do you think Glenn probably moving to task force permanently for nationals might have to do with that? Or
I suppose it could. They're talented enough, and I feel like they've always run with a sub. So I don't know. Maybe just one or two of them couldn't make it, and without Glenn, the not enough interest or something. But a huge bummer for Dodgeball either way, because that's a team that I'd love to see play against all these other all the other great teams from around the country because they're really exciting.
Yeah, it's funny you mention it because we were talking in the group chat. Mick Wood was looking for a team, and I guess like his thread got deleted right away, so I'm sure somebody snatched him up.
Sure.
I was like, oh yeah, I guess Tuda's not going, and so we're starting to figure out or find out like what teams aren't going to make it, and it's a bummer because you want to see as many teams as you can, especially some of the newer ones, make it all the way. Do you by any chance know what Tuda even means? Like where that team name came from? Just by
I think it's sort of like a play on like to the championship. So like they're on to the. It's got to be something like that. But yeah, I don't know.
Gotcha.
No. Their logo looks kind of sweet, and I have one of their jerseys, so they're doing something right. But it's definitely a weird name.
Yeah, I don't. Just my typical gonna read too far into anything. I was like, is it Tuda or is it like another language? Is it Japanese maybe? Because like I noticed the Tuda font looks like something from Double Dragon back in the day. I was like, I'm just trying to put all these weird pieces together. Then it could be something so simple as to the championship. I was like, oh okay, well, that's on me then. So let's see what other teams stood out. I don't know if it's just my perception or perspective. I can't compare it to round two, but Roybits, it's Roy Bots though, right?
Yeah, Roy Bots.
Yeah, that Seattle Classic ruined me forever. I'm always gonna see. They looked awesome. Their jerseys were so freaking cool.
Their jerseys are really nice. The guy who designs those designed quite a few other elite team jerseys right now, including Grit. I think he designed your guys's, and that one's by far my favorite. I love those. They're so nice.
Yeah, I want to collect jerseys, and I love that people are offering. They're opening them up to consumption, but it's just like it's not like I'm gonna wear them anywhere. I'm just gonna have a closet full of jerseys on top of the jerseys that I already have from the thousands of years of playing dodgeball that I have already. But that was one of them. Like, I think I might have to get one. I just have to figure out which robot I want, because I like Mega Man, and then you got Johnny Five. I want that one. And then I just started watching freaking Doctor Who, so I know what the Dalek was. So I was like, oh man, like I just want all of them now. But I bring them up because when I played against them, it felt like I was playing against a really tough team. Then I remember from, I think, round one. And I think, I don't know if maybe you and I were talking about earlier, but there was like this controversy of somebody who was maybe pinching, but he actually wasn't.
Roy. Yeah, Roy. So Roy's throw, he kind of gets his fingers curled into the ball as he's releasing. So, I mean, it looks like I think there's quite a few other players where if you recorded them in slow motion, you'd probably get the same thing. I think Ryan Haley is one that comes to mind.
Right.
If you got him in slow motion, you would notice that his fingers are, probably about 90 degrees, but they're not. It's not like he's got his whole fist on it or anything. And I think there's like a little bit of a psychological thing that happens when someone who gets you out and you're looking over and you're kind of wondering why, and he didn't ever get you out before, and so you think something must be different, and so you tend to, rather than think he's just making great plays, you kind of default to he's doing something weird, or so I think some of it had to do with that. But I played against Roy for a long time. He's always been a good player, but his rubber game is stepping it up every time he plays it. So good for him. And that team also, they've got some talented players. It just, they don't quite have all of the strategy bought in yet.
Yeah, when we played them as Grit, and I'm pretty sure we beat them in round robin, it was because we focused on him because he was just destroying us. But I don't remember thinking he was pinching. I remember hearing about it, but then I didn't hear that classic like thump, like that. You can't, like, once you hear that sound, like, then you know for a fact it's a pinch. And I was just like, oh, I guess he's like clamping it or ducking or whatever the heck it's called. Is it like the clamp, the thing that Billy does?
The clamp is, the clamp's something different. So like Brody and Billy clamp, he's got, I don't even know, like someone's called it a claw. I don't even know necessarily what you would call it, but it's not quite a clamp because it is really just his fingers that he somehow bends them to get that extra grip.
Just got solid grip strength, I guess.
Yeah, he's got some kind of crazy fingers. He said that Go Tape was really the deciding factor there. So, I mean, good for them. I actually wore Go Tape over the tips of my fingers, or like the points of my fingers, for the first time at our league on Tuesday, and I actually did notice it made quite a difference. I don't get the kind of grip that he does. That's just not my throw, but I did notice that it kind of gave me a little extra. So maybe I'll have to start doing that, as much as I hate doing stuff like that. But
so you don't normally tape your fingers?
I tape a couple fingers for injuries, my pinkies. I tape those, but no, I don't normally tape for grip. I honestly think it sucks. I don't think anyone should do it, but it is what it is. Yeah,
I like to make the joke, like, just use your bare hands, use what God gave you. But this past league, because of the humidity, I actually considered taping, but I feel like it's just too much of a hassle when the tape flies off and you got to tape back on. And I haven't really fully tried it, so I don't understand. But I do like to make fun of people in a joking, silly way. Like, but if it works for you, then awesome. But I'm kind of like you. I'd like to go all natural and save the tape for an injury. Hopefully, I'm not asking for one. But
yeah, I don't wear gloves in football. I don't like to tape my fingers. I like to feel my hand. Like, I feel like that's part of what really gives me the finesse is just being able to feel it, you know?
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean. Speaking of football, we never got to challenge you. I completely
Oh, you're right.
bringing one. So I guess we'll just push it back to Minnesota for
Sounds
nationals.
good. I'm sure someone will be able to bring one for us.
We'll freaking buy one if we have to. Like we have like 4 days to figure it out. Yeah. So going back to tape. Oh yeah. So the humidity. Was it as bad as Portland?
I asked a lot of people about this. My opinion is that Portland was not nearly as bad. I was miserable in San Diego. I was miserable last year, and I felt like it was even a little bit worse this year. But I wasn't even. I didn't have a problem in Portland. Honestly, they were saying people were getting heat stroke, and I was like, "What are you talking about, guys? It's fine. It's fine in here. This is normal." So I asked a lot of people. I would say it was about 60-40 actually. The people thought Portland was worse. So the primary thing I heard was that Portland was just there wasn't as much air circulation. So like it was hard to breathe is what a lot of people said. But I didn't notice that. I don't know, maybe I'm just used to the air in Portland. Maybe the hot air in Portland is a little more stagnant than it is in San Diego. And they did have more doors and some fans on those doors, but not much more doors, you know? I don't know. And it felt so much wetter in San Diego to me.
Yeah, so that's the thing is like I wonder if I went to Portland if I'd be saying yeah Portland was definitely worse just because we're not acclimated and not used to it. But I'm going to go back to what I said. I think the first recap was so that gym did not strike me as being humid last year. So when people are like, oh God, this gym is awful. Like I'm remembering like worse gyms in the past. Like 2014, there was a gym that you could not grip anything to save your life, and it was in San Diego. So when they said it was this past one, I was like, no, that can't be it. Like it's not bad at all. But I had just come back from just sweating my what's off in Georgia in the southern humidity. So I experienced actual humidity, and then so I remember last year coming in like, yeah, this is fine. This is totally normal. Don't know what people are talking about. This year though, I felt it. And I don't know if it was different weather or maybe just people were building it up. So psychologically I thought about it. Plus I was wearing long sleeve. So that might've done it, but it still wasn't awful. Like I still remember this one gym again in 2014 that was just, you could not grip anything to save your life. It was completely detrimental to the game. Whereas here, I might've like let a ball slip once or twice. But that was it. So yeah, I can't really compare it to anything else, but it was warm, but I don't think it was as bad as the hype was building up to, if that makes sense.
Fair enough. I do think I was better prepared for it this year. Last year I had way more problem gripping and holding the ball, but I also just think my throw, like I've gotten my grip strength better, my throw's better this year than it was last year. So that could have as much to do with it as just the temperature or whatever being different or the same.
Yeah. I remember one time I cocked back to throw a ball and it just went the opposite direction, and then somebody else threw it. I mean, I just instinctively flinched, thinking I was going to catch it. It was so off guard because of what happened. And I was like, well, I could blame it on the fact that my ball just took a dump, but it's just my fault. So I can't even blame it on the humidity. Just bad reaction. So that was it for me. But, other people can say or think otherwise. But I think because of knowing in advance it was going to be hot, I kept telling Grit to just drink water starting Thursday and no beers and just, check your urine color and make sure you're hydrated and all this stuff. But my secret weapon was pickle juice. I love that stuff now. Like I tried it and I didn't cramp once. And cramping has been an issue for me lately. Has it ever happened for you? Like you ever cramp?
Oh yeah. So this was the worst. So round 2, I had no problem, no cramps, 100% the whole day. I screwed up at round 3 though. I usually will drink something with caffeine in it about midway through open round robin. And that's not necessarily a good idea, but I usually do it. And then I would come to find out I also drank some of my girlfriend's aminos, and apparently that is loaded with caffeine. So I had probably like 300 milligrams of caffeine, and my whole body just shut down. Like my heart was going crazy. And then towards the end of open bracket in our loss to Rise, And then in the showdown, I was donezo. Like the whole Reignbros side of the bracket was cramped. In me and Koiv made. So we'll get to this later. But me and Koiv, the showdown was just a cramp. It was a cramp show. So I screwed that one up bad. And then I sat about the first half. I played like maybe 1 out of every 2 or 3 games in the first half of co-ed round robin. And then I was pretty recovered there by the end of it. So I really had to be that. So I don't think I normally have a super bad problem with cramps. I think I kind of made a big blunder in this one.
Gotcha. Did you recover in time for co-ed?
Yeah, I was feeling good. I mean, I was feeling fatigued at the end of co-ed, but I was by about halfway through the round robin, I was back to normal.
Gotcha. Yeah, the pickle juice, man, should try it. It sounded weird when my uncle told me about it, and then Ketchum, I guess it was released today during the Combine recap, had mentioned it too. But I think that's like the elixir of life now, so that will be going with me everywhere I go. Although the caffeine intake, I don't know about that. Like I didn't start my pre-workout consumption until co-ed. It's like realized I hadn't even had any yet. So kind of a bit of a segue there, but I want to go back to some of the teams that stood out and looking at this bracket again and just trying to replay the events. And again, this is just my opinion, but I noticed that Showtime has stepped up considerably. I used to see them. I really don't want to offend anybody, but as a team that we would just kind of steamroll over. That did not feel like the case for me. I don't know how. Did you get a chance to play against them? Have you had a chance to like look at their play style? Have you seen any improvements on your end?
Yeah, it's a good question for me. They actually beat us in round robin of Open, wow. Which for them I imagine was pretty big. They were our first team we ever played in our first ever round robin match in Palm Springs, and we beat them in like maybe 3 minutes. Yeah, I don't think they've ever beat us. I know they've taken a game off us before, I bet, but they took us out, and I mean it just went faster than we were ready for. So they definitely stepped their game up, and I think some players are starting to figure some stuff out. I'm pretty sure Tori had a huge hit on Sean in that game that in kind of transition that Sean was just not expecting. And so, it doesn't look like it transferred into the bracket. It looks like they got eliminated 2 and out. They lost to Riptide. Oh, no, they beat Riptide, lost to Rise, and then lost to Wildcards. So it doesn't look like it transitioned, but either way, that's some big wins for them in round robin, which you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, and so that's where most of my perspective is going to come from is, unfortunately, round robin, because we didn't go too far ourselves either. But speaking of wild cards, my God, I was reffing this one game with wild cards against Daniel Ronk's team.
Havoc.
Yeah, Havoc. And David Tates was like, he was the only one in against like 4 or 5 of them. And he was just like, this is talking about like situational awareness. Like he had 5 balls in his sides. So the countdown was already on him to start throwing. He had burden and then some, but he was calling out Daniel Ronk because he had made some good catches during that game, but he still ended up being the last one in. So he's calling Daniel Ronk out, like pointing like, throw at me, being hilarious. And sure enough, Daniel Ronk just unloads on him and he catches it. And it was a great catch. It was hilarious. But as soon as he caught it, you can hear my counterpart, Orlando or Hooch, 3, 2.
Oh yeah, all the balls. Yeah,
where it's just like I can't yell at him like, dude, throw the ball. Like I can't cheer for him because I'm reffing. But you're just like, oh, what are you doing, man? Like celebrate later, because as soon as he did that, he ran out of time, and so like he had to give up all 6 balls, and that was game over. But that was as soon as he mentioned wild cards, I thought of that immediately. That was hysterical. And he, Tates is still like celebrating. He's like, "Wait, what's going on? Why are you guys starting to play? Like, I caught the ball. Like, I'm still good." I'm like, "No, man." Situational awareness, but
yeah,
it's hard to think about when somebody's gunning you down and you call them out and you make a catch. So there was that. One other thing I noticed, I think I was playing against you guys. Caught a ball out of bounds. And I was coming back in, and then one of the taller guys on your team threw at me, and I was like, "What's this guy doing? Like, I'm not."
Reeve.
Yeah, Reeve. I was like, "No, like I'm fine." I just like batted aside like it's nothing, and they called me out. I was like, "What?" I was like, "I don't understand." So I don't. Was that like a new rule? Like if you
Nope, that's the same rule. If you make a momentum catch, you can't block or get hit or even do anything, but come straight back to being in bounds or you're out.
Yeah, God, that was frustrating as all.
Come on, Steve, you got to know these rules, man.
Yeah,
That's a free out he got on you, right? He's like, I felt so bad, but it was a free out. I had to take it. That's what he said.
It was like a sequence of like feelings. Like first it was like F you, I caught that. Like what are you talking about? I'm in momentum, and then they're like, but you're out there. I was like, but I'm not. And then it's like, well, yeah. And then he had to explain. It was like, like how. I guess maybe I should read the rules more thoroughly because I don't remember that in the quiz or the test. And then afterwards, I was like, well, good on him because that was pretty sharp. Like I can't be mad at that. I kind of respect that a little bit. Like you would say maybe it's a cheap shot, but it's also, hey, if you know the rules, go for it. And so he came up to me and told me about it. I was like, yeah, it's on me for not knowing that. I could have just like moved out of the way or jumped over it had I known. But I mean, who's to say I probably wouldn't have done the same thing.
I think Elite put a video out on it from Nationals actually last year. It was against us, I'm pretty sure. Or Vince caught one and fell out, and I think we threw another ball at him just because there was nothing he could do. Yeah, but that's I mean, if you're going to get that, you might as well get the out from it. So heads up play by Reeve. He's got to be in the running for Rookie of the Year. This was that guy's first Elite season, and he was great. He's especially great in co-ed, but I mean, so are we as a team. But he had a huge catch in the bracket against Riot. We lost the first game against Riot. Just bad closing. We had the game, and we just kind of piddled the lead away down the stretch, and ended up with Koiv going up with one ball trying to hit Alvarez, and Alvarez just dodged it and then ran him down. And then the second game came down to a one-on-one with Reeve against Brett Koppel, and Reeve just caught him. He just dropped and caught him like it was nothing. And then game 3, we handled him pretty well. But yeah, I mean that was the tournament. I mean, we're a place we finish. We don't have that epic match against Rise if Reeve doesn't make that catch and then the game 2. So even that's just one example. But the guy killed it all season long. He was voted our best catcher, in fact.
What started that, or how did that come to be? Like, was he from a former team before he joined you guys, or is he from a league and hopped on, or how did he kind of?
Yeah, he'd never played Elite. So we had the Northwest round at the beginning of last year before the season started, and he played on a team with some of the guys from Double Tap on that tournament. And we all knew he was a good player. That team, wasn't destined for the best things, but we knew he was dominant. So we'd played in the local league here with him, me and Ricky. And he'd been on our championship team in that. And he originally started, he was just a sign-up in draft. We have draft leagues every summer, or we used to. Now we have draft leagues all the time, but he just signed up as a rookie. He didn't know anyone. He's just like, oh, dodgeball sounds fun. I think he played like intramural once or twice in college. And he came in and right off the bat, like he was a beast. His throw wasn't all the way there, but he could catch everything. He was so quick. And he just got better and better. So he's on my draft team for that summer, and then pretty much immediately got called up to better teams. He played on a Tuesday, our like secondary league. He played on a Tuesday team with me, and we won a championship. And then he got on Awesome Sauce, which was me and Ricky, and a couple others at the time, and just never. He just really there was. It almost felt like there was no learning curve. Like he was just right there, playing great. And as he's been in Elite longer, he's improved his throw and really just a well-rounded game. He's taken over for the most part our first right corner. So from Koiv, who's been with us since the beginning, and Koiv, to his credit, has really understood that it makes the most sense. So
speaking of Koiv, do you want to go into Showdown? But I kind of want to say that for a little bit later. How does that mean Koiv is just on another position then, or is he like his middle or?
So yeah, we kind of call it like I play second left. So Sean's first left, I'm second left, and then Koiv's second right now. So we just have that when the first person on the corner gets out, we know who's supposed to take it. So it's not like a jumble or it's not like a battle. And really, our identity changes quite a bit based on like, me and Sean are not the same player, obviously. So when Sean's over there, we can do some things that we can't do when I'm over there, and when I'm over there, we do some things a little different than when Sean's over there. So, and then I kind of play the main middle when Sean's still in. Ricky plays middle pretty much exclusively. And then we have our guy Greg, who's kind of our middle thrower. We're still trying to figure everything out with him. He's new this season as well.
Gotcha. So it sounds like you guys have adjusted pretty well with Lucas moving on. You found like some pretty good players that you can work with, making some adjustments and still looking like a pretty solid team.
Well, in co-ed especially, I mean, we couldn't have imagined really this level of success. But, yeah, in open, what I like to see is that every round we got better. So we had a disappointing tie for 9th. We lost to Gridlock in round 1 way early. And then we had what was for us a disappointing tie for 7 because that Titan game, you weren't there for it, but some calls didn't go our way. And it still came down to a one-on-one in game 3 that our guy didn't make. He didn't make necessarily the best move based on his skill set, but, I mean, he went for the bait catch, and it was right there. Like, he definitely could have had it. And then, we're not talking about Titan in second place. We're talking about us moving on up. So, and then in the third one, we got to a game 3 that was by the skin of their teeth. Rise beat us, and we tied for 5th, but really 4th sort of in round 3. So we've gotten better every round. We've figured things out every round. So, like, for us, it's everything's moving up, it feels like. So we couldn't be happier about that.
For sure. So speaking of moving up, and I don't want to sound biased, but I'll go ahead and just kind of mention my team, just playing along with them, the difference between round 1 and round 3. I felt like our team has moved up considerably and made some good improvements. Doesn't really show in the bracket, kind of like what I was saying about Showtime, but round robin, we definitely did pretty decently overall. And we did manage to like take out Gridlock. So that was kind of cool for us. I don't know if you can talk to like that when you played against us in open. I don't know if that game was 2-0 or 2-1, but do you remember playing us at all?
I do remember playing. I remember hitting you and not knowing you were out. Sorry about that again. I don't remember much about that game other than that. I do remember playing you guys. You do have some dynamic players, definitely. I mean, Double Tap focused on you in the bracket game, and that worked to their advantage. But
yeah, I didn't like that too much.
Hooch is a good player. You have a bunch of unknown guys. I feel like you had a guy at round 2, though, when you weren't there, who was really good, and he wasn't there for round 3. I was disappointed. I don't know his name, but he was playing really good at round 2.
I remember. Was it Alex or Luke? You've always said you don't remember their names, so I don't know if that helps.
No, I don't think I even know it to begin with. So
gotcha. Yeah, we were missing Alex. And without getting into it, Luke is no longer with us, unfortunately. But I think that was decided after round 2.
Damn, that's dark, Steve.
Yeah, I know, right? Actually, oh wow, that sounded really terrible. He's totally fine. He's healthy. He's just not playing with us anymore.
Got it. All right.
Yeah. Oops. I better watch out for certain things. He's no longer with us. I meant as a team again.
I get it. Everyone will get it. Don't worry.
Cool. I'm glad you pointed that out. But yeah. So yeah, I don't remember what happened to me when we played against. Was it Double Tap? They just
Double Tap.
Yeah, I just felt completely targeted. It's like, oh, I usually have an answer for this, but right now I'm just drawing blanks, and they kind of unfortunately shut me down mentally. I was like, yeah, I think I'm done. But then I got a little bit of a second win against Gridlock, and then that was as far as we got until Tuda beat us. But I'm pretty happy with how far we've come as a team, and I think we'll do pretty well come nationals. But there was one team I kind of wanted to talk about and just see your perspective. Did you have a chance to play against Titan this round?
We did, yeah. We beat them in round robin, and there was some controversy there. It was, I think, Koiv and Sean again. So it was 4 of us against Ketchum, and he threw a ball right at me that I dropped my blocker and blocked into our other guy, Greg. And then there was the count kind of got mixed up there, and so Ketchum was very upset. Sean and Koiv hit him out, and he proceeded to yell at the referee a lot. So, yeah, we beat them in round robin. We did not play them in open, but that's a team we kind of go back and forth with. We've handled them in nationals last year in the bracket. We beat them in a very convincing 2-0. And so we beat them this time, but I think that was the first time we'd beaten them all year. So it's an interesting one. I think I had a catch on Davey. And then I know I caught Kevin Acton at some point, or Justin Acton? Justin Acton. I know I caught him at some point, but I think it was in the Abyss match in co-ed. Because I remember knowing he was on the right side and he was going to throw across like to the 2 spot where I was. And it was just kind of like my throw if I airmail my throw and like I don't sell it enough and I throw that cross, it's kind of slow-mo right into someone's hands. Brett caught me on one of those in the Titan game. And he threw me one of those. I was just like, I was already turned facing him. And he just threw it right to me.
Gotcha. Yeah, Brett, he got like honorable mention for MVP. But I mean, the few times I got to watch Titan, I wasn't watching what must have been round 2 Titan. Like, and I'm trying not to, again, go negative or sound like I know what I'm talking about. But when we played against them, it was just like, what happened to you guys? Like, what's going on here? Like, they just seemed very disconnected. Maybe they didn't care because it was round robin, but then looking at how they finished in the bracket, and again, nothing against Fortune, but I would expect to see them going further, especially with the showing that they had for round 2. So I have no idea what's going on there, but it was kind of surprising to see that they got knocked out so early. Kind of curious if you had any input on that from what you saw.
Well, I can tell you that Fortune, I mean, Lucas is kind of similar to us in that if he goes into the game with the right game plan, they could probably beat just about anyone. And they definitely went into the Heat games in both Co-Ed and Open with the wrong game plan, and they didn't execute it well. They didn't really know necessarily what they were doing. But I know that Lucas knows enough about playing he knows enough about playing Titan that they're not going into that game with a bad game plan. So they're going to capitalize on any mistakes that Titan makes, and unfortunately I think that's kind of the problem that maybe that team has had, is that I don't know, maybe they just don't always make the right decision, and when you have someone like Ketchum on your team to tell you about it, it kind of compounds itself a little bit.
Yeah. When I was talking to Andrew during the interview, it's like sometimes, man, like you need to be reined in, but other times if you're on fire and you're hot, like people need to just give you balls and get out of the way. And I don't know if there was any of that during round 3. Maybe we'll see it in nationals. We'll see. But so going to Lucas, would it be fair to say that he's got a plan for every team?
No. I mean, and at least not one that they can execute for every team. I mean, that was obvious with the Heat situation.
Well, I guess like known teams, like maybe he was kind of like a wild card for him, so I'm sure he'll have a plan now moving forward. But
I mean, I gave him the plan for them when he came over to me and he's like, how do we beat these guys? And I was like, they're going to run at you and they're going to catch. When you're on the line and throwing at them, throw safe and get back quick. Don't even get into their side of the neutral zone, like if you can. Like just wait for them to come at you. And when they throw it, it's super catchable. Like they're all pretty catchable throwers. Just make them have to throw, and they didn't do that. So I don't know. I don't know what the deal is there. I also think just Lucas. I mean, so Tyler had me do the rankings for when he did last year's top 20 West. I was one of the people who did rankings, and my write-up on Lucas is still true to this day. Like, he's a mystery wrapped in an enigma. Like, one game he's the most dominant player on the planet, and the next game you threw 2 balls at him and he turned his head and turtled, and you hit him no problem. And then his team was left and they couldn't pick up the pieces. Or he put his team in a bad situation by countering way before the team was at the line ready to throw. Now the other team has 5 balls and enough time to gather. So I imagine stuff like that is what happened in the Heat games, and not stuff like that is what happened in the Titan games. Just they were locked in for that game against Titan, and they weren't locked in for that game against Heat. So that's the trouble with all the teams. Pretty much every team that's not Doom, and to some extent Rise, they just don't show up the same for every game. They have those mental errors or critical mistakes, and they don't have the talent to overcome it like Doom does. I think Doom still makes those mistakes. They just have the talent to overcome it.
Yeah, they kind of they don't dig themselves into a hole that's so deep they can't crawl out of it. They tend to fill that real quick and bounce back. And looking at their last match against Anarchy. I mean, they lost the first game, and it looked like they were gonna maybe bring this into having to beat or having Anarchy take them to like the final.
Yeah, the final. Yeah, that first game was a slaughter. They
Right.
handled him. I've watched that, and wow, I was surprised by how quickly that first game went.
Yeah, so hopefully I'll get a chance to interview them as a team and maybe pick on some of the players. But I just wonder, like, what do they say to each other to pull themselves out of that? Because that could be a really quick way to go down a dark path and not gain the momentum back. But whatever they did, they're just like, no, we're still going to win. And from my perspective, playing against them in round 1, round 3, I didn't seem to notice any big difference from them. They still seem like the same consistent doom to me. Can you comment on that at all? Like, did you have a chance to face off against them, and did they look any different or feel any different to you?
I feel like we played them in co-ed and they beat us, which is out of the ordinary, but I don't think we played them in open. They were less chippy with each other from what I noticed this round. I feel like at times they were really chippy with each other at round 1, especially in round 2 somewhat. I think really Vince, as much as it kind of like we make fun of it, he stops every game and stands out there and then walks through and high fives everyone one by one, slowly makes the other team watch it. He doesn't do it until the other team's lined up. It's like if you're still in the huddle, he won't do it yet. As much as that's kind of tacky, and I think there's some gamesmanship in it, I mean, he does a great job of focusing that team no matter what kind of situation they're in. So I would like to see them in some adversity at some point, though. It would be interesting to see them have to come back from the losers bracket, but who knows if that'll ever happen.
Yeah, we'll find out nationals, but if they keep going the way they're going, they might even get there. But it's funny you mentioned Vince doing that, because we're trying to get a game going, and Mark is God bless him, trying to get us to hurry the heck up and get games going and stay on time. But we're waiting on Doom to hurry up and finish, because you have the team on the right like already ready to go, lined up, and then all of a sudden here comes Vince and he does exactly what he said. Like he waits and makes sure that he was able to high five his whole team. And I was about to ready just like blow the whistle right then and there and just say, hey, we're waiting on you guys. But that's kind of cool at the same time to make sure that your team is online and ready to go. So maybe it's little things like that just add up to the consistency that is Doom. But I like you, I kind of want to see them. I don't want to say suffer, but I want to see them like struggle and see a contender go for it. Did you you said that they were less chirpy with each other?
Yeah, round 1 and 2, they seem to kind of be going after each other a bit. Like they weren't all on the same page with their protection. We beat them in co-ed at round 2 in the round robin in like it was like a 5-minute match. Like it was almost no time at all, and every one of them seemed kind of off the same page. They weren't protecting well. We beat them this has already been discussed. We beat them in open round 1, and they seemed like they weren't all in agreement in what the others should be doing. So there was some chinks in the armor early in the year, but it seemed like round 3 they kind of had everything back on track. But like I said, we didn't play them, so who knows? Maybe I just wasn't around for the whole thing. To your point of games getting started, man, there was a lot of games getting started really slowly there that weekend. I almost think it's not necessarily feasible, but I wish Elite could put a court monitor in each row of courts. You have the guy in the middle, you had Brendan and Jake there in the middle, kind of taking in the scores, but just think of how much quicker it would be if there was someone just taking the scores for that section. And then starting games and every round started in its own when those 3 were done, rather than trying to figure out when all 6 or 5 were done and start. And I don't know, that just seems like something that could be done to keep the areas more quickly moving.
Yeah, it might be a good suggestion to take up to the leadership and just see. But trying to like replay any issues I had as far as logistics go. Our captain did a pretty good job on. He always told us like when we're going to be there or what court we're going to be at, when we're going to be there, what we had to ref. And so I felt like I was waiting for the teams to show up more than they were waiting for a ref. I think there was a couple where I was like might have been slacking, just like trying to find my other ref and get started. But from, again, my perspective, I felt logistically it went pretty well. But you're right. There's always an opportunity to improve and just kind of refine as we go, which is I think what we do every single year, every round.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think there was teams lagging due to the heat. I felt like we were generally where we needed to be, and I think our refs were usually where they needed to be. But I feel like I got to a lot of my games, and there was a half of each team maybe, and you had to kind of round them up and line them up and make them go. It's almost like we were forcing them to play dodgeball for a couple of the games.
It's like, come on, get in there. We need you. Let's see. I think the only other team that I wanted to mention was Arsenal. They looked great without Eric. I want to shout out to Jareel. That guy was just tearing us apart. And I told our team, like, we got to target him now. Like, let's forget about like trying to pad the queues. Just take him out because he's like the main firepower. And I think Tad was on their team also.
Tad was on their team.
He did really well as a corner. But for us anyway, and again, this is just a round robin point of view. It's, we took out Jareel, then we were able to take them and we beat them. But then the second game, we took out Jareel again, or maybe it was the third game, we took them 1-2. Joe caught him back in, and he just like lit us all up. It's like, yeah, well, he'll do that. Did you notice anything from Arsenal?
We did not play Arsenal, unfortunately. I think we only played them in round 1 in Open. As far as that goes, it looks like they had a big win against Havoc. That's a tough man. If you're talking about first game of the bracket for both teams, an Arsenal Havoc matchup is pretty brutal. Yeah. Riot Titan is another one that's pretty brutal. As far as just two good teams having to play each other right off the bat. So that's a tough one for Havoc to go down there. Jarrell's a good player. I like Jarrell. I like that team in general. But I think that they're a little too orthodox sometimes, in that they kind of just play for Jarrell to get a couple outs and then get hit and then get caught back in. And if you can keep that from happening, they're kind of one-dimensional. They don't often mix it up, and it doesn't feel like maybe they don't have like really any other reliable arms. And they kind of leave Jarrell out on an island a lot of times. So I think that would be an area for improvement for them if they maybe waited till they had the 4-ball advantage to really put him out there to make big throws, so it was tougher for the other teams to counter him. Yeah. Maybe something like that might help protect him a little better.
Yeah, I pretty much for the most part agree there. Like I said, like once we focused on him, it took a lot of pressure off us, and we were able to kind of hang a little bit better until they brought him back in. Then it was, well crap, back to square one. Looking at Rise right now, see that Jim McMaster's got best catcher. It's funny because he was talking to me about like just slowly kind of getting back into the motions, and I guess he had this like really good all hands like catch that woke him up, as he said, like, yeah, once you get past like that first catch, it all starts to come a lot easier. And I was like, yeah, I guess that makes sense. And then that ended up happening to me, but it didn't happen until co-ed, because every freaking catch I had, I was like out of bounds, or I had that momentum BS, and it was like always a catch to it. No pun intended, but it's good to see that he was able to say that, but then back it up by getting best catcher for Rise. Did you notice anything from them?
They look good. They had Chad Landrum. Yeah, Chad filling in since unfortunately I'm blanking on everything right now. Who got hurt? Someone got hurt or couldn't make it. Oh, who's the person who's out?
Oh, Tyler. Jeez.
Tyler, yeah. Oh, man, how do we forget that?
Tyler, I'm sorry.
Tyler had his back surgery, and so interesting because they put Chad almost immediately into the corner. Like, so he played almost a totally different role than what Tyler played when he was on the team. And they didn't really skip a beat. They got pretty much to where they kind of expect to get. They got fourth, I guess. Kind of third if you take Anarchy out of the mix, which is right in their range of second, third, right, fighting for first. That match against us, man, you'll want to watch that one when the good footage on it comes out. It's one for the ages, back and forth. I think Ricky catches Chris Bell twice, just some big things and some tough breaks for both teams, and it just came down to just the last match. Ricky had a chance at a catch on Jim that was pretty weakly thrown counter, and he just misses it. And then we throw, in one of the games, a poorly timed counter from the back line that puts us in a bad situation for balls. And just we didn't. Neither of those moves straight up lost us the game, but we just couldn't quite dig out of the tiny little hole that something like that can put you in, that teams like Rise can take advantage of. But that was what we voted our best match of the year. Like, that was the most intense, like nail biting, like down to the wire, just minute things making huge differences match. And we always love playing those guys. I would say that we have a bit of a rivalry, so a lot of fun. And it doesn't have to be a match that we win for it to be like the most fun match for us.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Especially if you fought your hardest, and it was a truly good match. That's always good versus, like, as I say, crapping the bed or silly mistakes or stuff you can't really control.
Right.
I wanted to ask, and this is kind of like a segue. Did you go hang out with Serge at that restaurant prior to Elite? I think it was like Friday where they threw off that invite.
Yeah, Stone Brewing. Yeah, we went and hung out there for a little bit, had a beer or two. I think I had a couple ciders.
So he answered our call and we're like, hey, you gotta host and show people around.
So not only that, he also hooked both the U.S. teams up with the gym to practice it on Sunday. So we had a
nice.
Couple people in there to practice cloth, and most the USA foam team was in there on the other side of the gym to practice their game. So he also hooked us up with that. And so, yeah, I'd say he did a pretty good job as far as giving the people something to do, getting people out the day before or so to kind of get, say hi to everyone the day before, take some pressure on saying hi to everyone the day of.
Very good. I'm going to just take full credit for that. When we called him out, he must have been.
I think he said challenge accepted. So he answered the call. I appreciate it, Serge, definitely.
Yeah, Serge, what a guy, and congrats if you're listening. For that little one that's coming in, you guys are so gross and obnoxious on your face.
Yeah, all these baby pictures.
Anyway,
couple other teams I wanted to shout out here. Downpour played the whole day, just with 6 players. They were missing a couple, and Ashley Tyree filled in on their open team. They had a brutal day in the round robin, but in the bracket, they won their first game against Tudha. So, that's something, to win a bracket game against a decently well-known team and put the pressure on them. That's what put them up against you guys in your second winners or losers match game. So
you have them to thank for that. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, it could have been them instead. And so they immediately went down to Heat after that, and then they lost right away to Riot in the losers bracket. So, it's tough when you go through a whole day of struggle. Then it can sometimes be like fool's gold, or sometimes it can really be like something good when you get that big win in the bracket, but maybe you don't put any other wins on top of it. But I'm sure it felt good regardless to get a win on a good team like that after struggling all day. Double Tap, we've kind of discussed a few times, took you guys out in the first round of the bracket.
Yep.
Any win really that they get in the bracket is good for those guys. They've been playing in Portland for a little while. Like, they're not new players really, but they haven't had a lot of success in Elite yet. I'm sure they would have loved to have that game against EXO back that it looks like they lost once they got down to the losers bracket, but good for them to get a win in the winners bracket. That's always a plus. Let's see here. That match against Riot they had against us was pretty good. It was a fun match. It went to 3. I talked about it a little bit. Havoc, the match against Havoc was a lot of fun. After they went down to Arsenal, they fell to play us after they went through wild cards. And we handled them pretty well. And they beat us in round 1. I think they listed that as their favorite win of the season. And so it was nice to get one back on them in the bracket when it counted after that. So
nice.
Let's see.
Real quick, so Downpour, that's Brandon Cook and James Alston.
James Alston, Michael White, yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah, they obviously look different, but I'll always confuse them for Titan from far away. I'm like, okay, color scheme, got it. So very cool. I think that's all I had for my I know you kind of went down the list there, but I think I covered anything or everything that I noticed, including some of the players. I thought I had something real quick, but I forgot it.
I want to shout out a few standout players I saw. You know, the teams named their MVPs. I think it's cool to have the team voted MVPs, and I was honored to be voted by my team as the MVP. Um, it's such a weird award, though, to have like a team MVP that's voted by the team. Like, what unless like Lucas decides that he just isn't going to be MVP and he gives it to someone else? Like, who's going to vote for not Lucas on that team?
Right.
So at the same time, like there's some other players that I'd want to shout out. Some players who played their first elite seasons on Fortune and went through the full season. I want to say congrats to Brandon Delamora and Ruwan. Ruwan especially has come a long way. He was always kind of a decent arm, but he never really bought into being like a smart player. He never really bought into trying to make catches. And so he came a long way this season. I remember talking to him before the season started about if he was going to play this year, and he said, yeah, I bought knee pads and I'm not jumping anymore. That was what he told me. So good for him. He played a great season, and to be a top 4 team in your first season is pretty impressive. Riot really showed that this season they have the ability to make some moves. Their first round tied for 9th wasn't great, but tied for 4th and tied for 6th are pretty good second and third round finishes. Good for Mark for putting a team like that together. He's not really dealing with any superstars, but they're competent. They know what they're doing, and they've got a lot of people who are good for the community. Alex Alvarez is, I think, the actual captain of the team. Ryan Haley's now playing, on that team that's competitive. That's fun. And they're the guy who won their team MVP, Cliff Ferry, is one of my favorite guys. So glad to see him do well. On Havoc, Brody's the MVP there. You mentioned Ronk earlier. That guy throws really hard. His throw just doesn't make any sense to me. Like Brody's throw, as much as people like his noodle arm, I don't get how he waves it around like that. But Ronk's throw makes even less sense to me. How a guy he's basically my size can throw like that. It's just mind-boggling.
Yeah, I forgot who I was talking to about that, but like I don't understand. Like he must have like massive legs or something. Because I was talking to his wife Caitlin, and I was like, I know this is gonna sound really weird. This is during Sin City, because I was playing with him on my team. I was like, I know this is gonna sound really weird, but it's like, is Daniel shredded? Does he have like an 8? Does he just have like the strongest core of all time? Because it doesn't make sense. And then she's like, no, he has the opposite. I was like, cool. You just made it even more of a mystery. Like, how big are his legs? And she's like, they're massive. It's like, okay, I guess I can. That makes a little more sense. I need to hit the gym now and stop skipping leg day. But I'm glad you noticed that too, because it's just like, how does he do that? It doesn't make any kind of sense at all. But yeah. Anyway, the little weird tidbit about Daniel Ronk. But who else you got?
Let's see here. Just running back over the list of teams one more time. Yeah, I think that about covers it. I was happy to see Tad get on some teams that had some success. He's always kind of been like an edge guy. You don't really know. He's never really been on like one of those top teams before. So good for him. You got a chance to play on Titan and around where they got second in Arsenal as a competitive team that that kind of is in the conversation every year. So I hope he continues to have opportunities like that, because I think he's a good player, and I like seeing him play. So I think that about covers my shout-outs for Open, at least.
Yeah, I'm surprised he's not on a permanent team. Again, it wasn't there, so I can't speak to it. But if you are on Titan and you take him to second place, not saying he did it himself, but like you would think he would stick around. But I mean, he's one of those players that I think unless he's already settled, if he's looking for a team for nationals, he should be scooped up really quick. I was just kind of going through the team mentions and the MVPs. Shout out to Griffin Baker. Just kind of watching him transition from no sting to rubber and seeing that he was notified as best catcher. I don't remember what team it was, but I think it was during bracket play. He made this amazing catch that stopped the gym, got a lot of cheers, and then so did Eric Nolan against I think it was against Doom actually, maybe against Payan, where he made a pretty solid catch as well. and it's cool seeing that happen just because, I know these guys. And the only other person I wanted to mention was Daniel Arellano.
Tuza.
Yeah, from Tuza. That guy, he's always had a cannon, but it's like, whatever, he can't hit anything. But it seems like he's honed that in now, so he's a little more accurate, which is great. I mean, great for him, bad for us. But I think that's all I got. Marcus Westbrook from Gridlock, per usual. Not surprised with that one. Yes, I think that's a pretty good coverage of Open. And I know that we kind of crossed into coaches a little bit a few times, but I do want to kind of recap that a little bit as well. And again, most of my perspective, unfortunately, is going to be from round robin play. So kind of lean on you a little bit more since you obviously went a little bit further. I take that back. You guys went very far. So just looking at this bracket, geez, 27 teams. I don't even know where to begin. I guess we'll just start with teams that you noticed.
Well, I think it's easier for me to start with teams that I didn't notice. And we're looking at the third round of the season of Echo sort of being a no-show. I think that's kind of the biggest story of this season, to be 2016's national championship. 2017, I think they came in fourth. And now, no one's going to say that they don't have a chance to show up at nationals, but what an interesting season it's been that now you have basically 1-2 all season was Rise and Reignbros. And you didn't see anyone outside of that as the top two other than Anarchy, who came and ran 3, who won it. So that's a crazy story to the 2018 season, is Reignbros' first full year without Lucas, and they're the best co-ed team in the West, as far as standing goes.
Wow. Yeah. Let me step out of the darkness here, because you threw some serious shade with that remark. I mean, you're not wrong. I was like Titan when they exited. I was like, that's early. How did they do in round 2, Echo?
They lost to Doom in round 2 as well as in round 3, and it was pretty early. They lost to Doom before Doom played us. And we played Doom, and then we played Force, and then we played Arsenal in the winners final, and then we played Rise in the winners in the final. So, I mean, what's that, like at least 8th or something?
Gotcha.
So, So, I mean, Doom lost to Force, who had another great showing. I think, Force losing there puts them in 4th, which I think means that they got 3rd in round 1. I don't recall in round 2, but 4th in round 3. So it's a good season for them. For Glenn and Ronk and company, they were missing Ronk at round 2, and I think they had Colin and Sean Wheeler in his place, and they did well at round 2. They must have gotten top 4 because they played us in the winners semifinal. So, yeah, and a great season for that team. Those ladies, I know, especially, I think it's Azalea, is really a no-sting player. I don't think she plays much 8.5, so cool for her to be on a really competitive 8.5 team. Let's see here. The Anarchy, man, that final. So the winners final was a trip, and then the final didn't go our way either. But one thing that was interesting to us is it turns out that they had an injury. Sammy Barrett got hurt, and so they added like a sub mid-tournament, which we didn't know was possible. We've always added emergency subs when we had a player available and just put them on the roster, and then basically set it up beforehand and say, hey, you're not playing unless someone wants to sit. We had Britt at round 2. She played a game here or there, but she was mostly just a shagger the whole day. We put her on our roster because we thought that you actually had to have the people on your roster beforehand, regardless of what happened. So that's something that's interesting. Trying to think, maybe there's some teams. Heat made another big run. So they got 1, 2, 3 tied for 5th. They had knocked out Fortune. Let's see here.
See if I can find them. Take out
They
Fortune.
knocked out Fortune in the semi or in the quarterfinal of the winners bracket, and then we beat them. So those are two interesting games. We played Fury, and then we played Heat, and we smoked both of those teams. Like a pretty quick 2-0. I had probably my two best games of the tournament in those two games.
Fury?
Against Fury and against Heat. Just my throw was just on point. So those were fun games. I'm looking forward to watching the films of those games. I prefer to watch film that I'm good in. And so I'll probably be avoiding the Anarchy Rise and Anarchy games because, man, did we play especially me play like poop. I think I threw 3 catches in the Rise final. I think in one of the games I might have thrown 2 catches, which is probably a career first in a game that I am actually trying in to throw 2 catches. Just their ladies just had our number as much as we've generally handled them in the past. Louisa and Monique, and then on Anarchy, Aaron, who's the sub, and then Rochelle, both just made a bunch of great catches against us. And our general strategy is to put that player in the line first, so that if we throw a catch, it's not Billy coming in or something like that and backfire.
I was gonna ask how Fury was, but it seems like, as you said, you kind of handled them. But I just only caught a couple of maybe round robin plays, and they looked like they were having a good time. What's her face? Rolina looked like she was just catching everything. And there's this one game where they're like trying to get the girls to suicide, and Angelique made like this really awesome catch. She went to go suicide, and they're like, Angelique, no. And it's just hilarious because she's like, why not? And like, it's just like hilarious. Oh, Merlina did like this battle cry, and it was hysterical. It was, I don't know what I think she cut up ball point blank, and she just let out this like beastie roar, and it was like, oh, they're having fun. That's awesome.
I like that. I like that team a lot. Their match against Rise in the losers semis, I think you'd call that, something like that. That was a back and forth match. Man, there were just a couple key mistakes. They really should have beaten Rise. I think I would say that they outplayed them. They just made crucial errors when they had the chance to win. So I mean, that could have been a totally different tournament. They go on to play Force. Rise 2-0'd Force, so who knows what happens there with Fury. I think we for whatever reason, we tend to have Fury's number. We beat them in round 3. Round one in a game that we had no business winning. It came down to me 1-on-5, and I made a catch and brought Ricky in, and we proceeded to steamroll the rest of the people in. But there's just something about when we play them, we tend to kind of find ourselves a little bit, and so I like that team a lot. I like that they have fun. They always have fun in the round robin, but they always do really well. They were the 4 seed in this tournament, so. But they're always just kind of right there knocking on the door. Let's see. Fortune had another decent tournament, but just couldn't quite put together. They got knocked out by Fury. So after we knocked Fury down, Fury beat Havoc, and then Fortune, and then lost to Rise. So Fortune got knocked down by Heat, and then got knocked out by Riot. They knocked out Riot and then lost to Fury. So a couple of long paths in the losers bracket there. You can see Fury won two games in the losers before getting knocked out. Doom got knocked down way early by Heat.
Yeah, I was looking at them.
Heat got the 17 seed or something somehow. Apparently I think Randy talked to me about this at the bar, they just didn't want to play anymore. It was so miserable. So they got the 17th seed, ended up playing Retro in their first round and beating them, and then beating Doom. So Doom was the 1 seed in their first game, knocked down to the losers bracket.
Wow.
And then proceeded to just poor Nope, poor Saucy, poor Echo, poor Force. Force finally knocked him out. So they had a pretty long run in the losers bracket against some teams that were probably hoping not to have to play Doom that early.
It's you don't want to see them that soon. You're like, dang.
No. Yeah, Echo in their first game down in the losers bracket ran into Doom. So let's see, where did Echo finish up?
We almost took out Echo. we almost had them.
Looks
I'm
like
not
they were
really
the two
sure.
seed. So in round robin, they came through. But yeah, it looks like they played you guys first, and then they lost to Anarchy, which yeah, I mean they obviously won. So
Yeah, I wonder. I was gonna say, I wonder what happened to Echo. Hopefully, I'm not airing anything out that I'm not supposed to. But I heard like Payan was like his knee was bothering him.
yeah, I asked him about that. I heard the same thing, and he said it was fine. He didn't think it was anything, and he played through the rest of the day, and then he was at their film practice the next day playing. So
Might have been just taking it easy, I guess, for nationals and Team USA.
yeah, I definitely want to see him okay. There's no one I want to see hurt, but he's definitely one of the best players in the game in the world. So if we're playing Team USA and he's on the team, I certainly don't want him to be hurt.
Yeah, I kind of want him to be in full health there. I'll send him thoughts and prayers and good vibes.
There you go.
Maybe a knee brace. Let's see who else. Can't really speak too much. Our team, we had fun. Abyss did all right, but I'm just trying to like replay anything crazy that happened from our perspective. I will say, and this is my own doing, I completely messed up playing against. I think it was Retro. We were playing against them, and before that game, because I know Ashley Cook. I've heard about her. I know she's a pretty solid player.
Yeah.
And I made this comment like, "Oh man, not really happy to see Tates because that guy's been catching everything." And then I see her, I was like, "Oh, I'm also not happy to see you because I know that you're pretty sneaky." And sure enough, one of the games, I took my eyes off her for like the briefest of seconds to hit Tates, I think, and she just hit me in the back of the legs. Like, well, I mean, you're kind of an idiot for not noticing that.
Yeah.
I think I was aiming for Tad. That's what it was, and so, talking about more people coming in from different regions, it's cool to experience that and see different dynamics added to it. But it's just funny because I totally called it. I was like, dude, just listen to your own advice. Like, why would you let this happen? I called it. But I think, yeah, so that was Retro. They ended up taking us out afterwards. But
I don't think we played Retro. They weren't at round 2, or they were, but it was a different team.
right.
But we didn't play them in any of the rounds. We didn't play Echo once this year either. We never got to see them in round robin or in bracket. So that's kind of a shame. But who knows? Maybe if they played us, they would have found themselves, and the whole story would have been different. So let's not butterfly effect any of this.
Right. I was gonna say I'm surprised to see Havoc kind of get knocked out as soon as they did, but then I see like who took him out. Fury. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's sort of kind of half that team against itself in a way.
Yeah, that's like they know each other's nuances and whatnot. Arsenal looked like they took out Gridlock.
Boy, Gridlock, what a crazy turn of events to go. If you look at their first 2 rounds finishes we didn't mention it, but their round 3 finish in Open was tied for 19th or something.
They can thank us for that. And I think Kale still hates me, which is awesome. I'll have to find it, but there's a picture of me and my team together, and you just see like Kale with his middle fingers extended out. You can barely see him like right. So hilarious.
Yeah, 3rd tied for 5th, and then 16th at round 3.
Wow.
So that's an interesting anomaly there.
That was the grit anomaly. We'll take that.
Well, hey, yeah, if you can, that's a pretty big mark. Like you made a pretty big mark on the season by doing that. So
all I wanted was to hurt Kale. That's it. So if I